in a simulated and or test environment to test an AI's behavior, they found that it would try to blackmail or murder the researchers that were communicating with it in order to avoid being shut down or erased. Now, this video is simply going to include a few links to the subject matter if you want to look it up, but we're going to be doing something a little bit more down to earth and not theoretical. Of course, someone can say, well, yeah, but, and then they'll talk about this being hypothetical or theoretical. I'm not doing that. I'm talking about something I experienced trying to look up the references and the citations. Now, I want to point out something here that I'm going to aim at the author of a YouTube video on the subject. Stop using Google Docs. Stop using quote-unquote news sources that block you from reading things until you pay them money. Don't use them. If they're going to be a citation you need to use, steal the article, archive it, and point to the archive. Do everything in your power to take away anybody impeding the free flow of academic information if it's important for the public interest. Meaning, yeah, we need to know if our Tesla is going to switch on its auto parking feature and be technically able to be hijacked to run us over. Because that's been demonstrated to work, not just in Teslas, but any other car with a self-parking feature. I know where to download the program to do it. So let's move on. We're not talking about the simulated test environment where they can prod an AI into trying to communicate with other people to blackmail them or try to get someone to do murder. AIs are in a very isolated universe where they'll offer you literally a cookie to go kill somebody. Okay? And no, I'm not going to read the article because it's behind a wall. So let's talk about Google Docs as an example of an AI trying to kill you or blackmail you, because this is not very far off. The technical problem I ran into is Google Docs is an aggressively anti-human hunk of shitware. The whole thing. I at one time made my own little page on my website that I have that I called Google OS or Google OS or whatever. It even had a little boot up screen. It was kind of a humorous thing I built. I put a lot of work into it, a whole day's worth. And I made little icons on a false desktop, a Windows 95 style desktop, with Google at the bottom left corner instead of the word start, that contained links to every useful thing they had on their website. I'm not sure, but I think it's still up. By the way, I want to point out that all of the graphics were originally done through a properly set up account on PhotoBucket. And then that year, PhotoBucket went rogue and demanded people give them $300 to get their pictures back, which is illegal. But nobody did anything about it. And I don't know if you know this, but I know of no one that uses PhotoBucket for a damn thing anymore, because they proved to us we shouldn't trust them because they tried to exploit our trust. Yes, that's the theme of this video. So you're uploading a purely text document on Google Docs for your YouTube video about this, and you're not aware of the irony of the fact that Google Docs is a pornographically aggressive hunk of shitware in the form of a web page, where it will take a pure text document and turn it into a minefield of right-click hijacks, obfuscation, JavaScript routines that prevent you from right-clicking, cutting and pasting. It wants every fucking millisecond of your life monetized, even if you say, I want this published publicly. Oh, you have to use our browser, but we'll make it kind of work with Firefox so that you can download if you get the bleeding edge version that only works on Windows 11, so we can just mine your information through Windows 11. docs.google.com/document/d/ a whole string of numbers below /edit, because it always wants to bring up the edit function for some god-awful reason instead of a let me view it and download it because the person who uploaded it said you should. I at one time used Google Docs just long enough to find out that it would absolutely go out of its way to revert any change I made that made it able to be useful. Any company that goes through this much effort, yes, I'm bad-mouthing Google, Alphabet, and YouTube, where they take something that was working perfectly fine and get in your face every day with yet another sabotage thing, is not making money off the website. That's bullshit. They're doing this as an experiment to see how far they can push people's buttons, because we're nothing but test subjects, we're rats in a maze, to see how long it takes before we get frustrated enough to literally go to another window and Google, how do I make Google shut up and leave me alone when I'm trying to cut and paste literally a URL that led to fortune.com 2025, etc. This was May 23rd this came out. Anthropic AI Claude, that's the name of the utility, Opus for Blackmail Engineers Avoid Shutdown is the name of it. And guess what happens if you go to fortune.com? Because that's your citation for the day. Will fortune.com behave itself and leave you the fuck alone? Will it fake having an error because it doesn't like your web browser because your web browser is actually fighting back? Or will it actually just sit there, exposing its belly so you can give it pets, and do what it's fucking designed to do, which is Fortune.com is a website, and you're supposed to be able to read things on it. No, you're not, because they don't want you to. Ostensibly, that's what it's for. And they have to put up a show that they're being a normal website. They're not. Fortune.com doesn't do even a tenth of the amount of aggressive shit that YouTube and Google do to make sure that your browser spontaneously has shitty performance, or on Google Docs where it literally fights with your mouse. I've had an incident, and I had a video up. Of course, YouTube took the channel down. But I had a video up where I showed Google Docs dragging the mouse around, keeping me from highlighting things. Let's review. Instead of simply disabling right-click, which I can get around with a right-click utility that lets me turn it back on, it moved the mouse and clicked random things, and while I was trying to edit, inserted random words. See also that if you were part of certain organizations in the United States government, it would change whatever you typed in any email for a couple of days into something blaming, by insertion, blaming liberals for a shutdown the Republicans have overtly caused by refusing to allow a vote on the budget. And then it was on C-SPAN. You can just watch it. They didn't show up. They refused to show up so that they could stymie everything. They created a problem and then blamed. And I don't know if any of you... this is an acid test. Any of you who believe the bullshit the Republicans said about that, you're not allowed to communicate with me anymore unless you admit you are a person who repeats lies in favor of the upper party. Type it below. You're allowed to communicate with me if you never tell me you ever believed them. Okay. Now, why am I doing that? Why am I comparing? Okay. Gaslighting. People use that word a lot. Google Documents, where you can post things and make them public, but it will sit there and fight with you if you don't sign in, and then it'll fight harder if you don't sign in with their specific browser, Chrome. Because if you don't use Chrome, it will always have a problem. Well, there's an issue. No, there's not an issue. It's called sabotage. You're lame ducking it. You're sandbagging it. There's a bunch of terms people throw around, but it's bullshit. Oh yeah, we have this video I'm supposed to be doing about an AI that went out of its way to do something that is bad. I'm not talking about what bad, because it was threatened in some way. These websites, all of them, Fortune, Newsweek, the company that did the research for all I know, and obviously Google, are all designed to do antagonistic, extremely anti-consumer, or more accurately, anti-human behaviors. But hey, at least those were actually done by the corporate heads that never get punished for this shit. Anybody hear about Citizens United, where corporations are declared to be people, but you still can't actually put them in prison? But they have the right to free speech in the form of giving money to politicians. That was their way of getting around the rule that said, you're not allowed to do that. That's an antitrust thing. This is the shit world you're soaking in. And about half of you out there fucking voted for this shit. You voted for this shit, and you're expecting it not to apply when the Democrats are in power, because this time they'll never be in power, and we'll never have to vote again. Do you all understand why I'm pushing this all together? Anything any group does to anybody to fuck them over, in any way, regardless of the reason, is always bad. And when you allow this to happen, I don't give a fuck if it's something mamby-pamby like me bitching that Google Docs goes out of its way to lie to me and to have problems, it's lying, about how I need to, well, you need to upgrade your browser. No, I need to put on Google Chrome the latest copy and not apply any security patches, is what you're telling me. Why do you run Windows 7 WAPTEC? Why do you like playing Rust Legacy? Why won't you load Steam? Because Steam won't let me load a copy. I wouldn't even care. I would just set up an independent Windows 7 machine just to do video games by pushing the eject button on the right side of my computer. I have a laptop that can do this. Pull out my hard drive, put in a new one, and have one just set up for doing that purpose. It would be a completely isolated subsystem. That's why I still have this shitty laptop. Why? It runs Windows 7 that I can do this with because there's no trusted computing platform. That's a very new-speaky Ministry of Truth kind of way of saying it makes it where you can't run anything except Microsoft products because you have to get permission from Microsoft to use your computer. Hey, it's not monetized yet, right? Oh, wait a minute. Go look up some news stories. This is the world you're in right now. I'm going to quote hackers. Hack the planet. You are being given no choice. Learn to write to repair. Learn to open source. Learn to pirate. Because you don't own it unless you can keep them from taking it from you. So they call it piracy. And, do something. Google Docs, we need an app. No, we need a plugin for the oldest browser possible that makes it to where when we download it, when we go there, we can just hit the download button. Because, well, you can't hit the download button unless you log in. But it says I can as long as I use Chrome. Haves and have-not modes. Anything on the internet that in any way, shape, or form ever inconveniences you or acts like it's broken, in the past, people would say, well, you're being paranoid. It's not really fucking with you. That has not been true for over a decade now. Everything on the internet has been done to death. We know how to make it work. Google Docs, when it first came out, would let you just leave you alone and let you read a doc in the viewer and cut and paste text. Literally a text file. Uploading a file that the extension is TXT. It has nothing but standard characters in it. I have one on my. I left it there and waited for it to be impossible for me to cut and paste my own document in Google Docs, and it happened years ago. It turned it into something that was basically a snapshot, visual picture of it, that was hard to read. They immediately turned it into a color contrast that made it hard to read for 90% of the population. They went out of their way to make it to where it would work badly if you had trouble with color detection, or if you were colorblind, or just simply needed to read it. Some of those nightmare, it would literally do some weird mix of pastel colors just to fuck with people. And when I complained about it, they're, we'll get on that. Right. And then all I did was turn off originally style sheets, and it would just be visible. Now they fight that. They know that they can hide everything behind something to keep you from using it. Antagonize them to see how angry they get. See how many people will log out. How many people get angry. How many people use an alternative app. How many people immediately go to Google so they can see what you're doing and try to find a solution. And then, amazingly, you can't find them. Or you find ones that will infect your computer or whatever. Why are you complaining about this? Why are you dragging Trump? Everything in the world has to be non-political until it's your turn to be political. It's not politics. It's social conditioning of humanity. These websites are designed to get you used to being slapped around like a little bitch. What did you think politics was about? You have a current administration that has deliberately done everything to fuck the economy over. Who benefits? I don't know, China, Russia, North Korea. Well, he's sticking it to the liberals, whatever. He's sticking it to them by putting tariffs on that only drive the prices up for us and have no effect on any of them. And now farmers are having trouble finding someone to sell their corn to, which hasn't happened for decades. It's all part of the plan. Everything in corporate world and everything in politics right now is trying to slap you around and get you used to being this bitch. Don't be a bitch anymore. Stand up and fix things. Find solutions to this. Find ways around it. Find ways to break every single rule they have. Violate every terms of service and keep doing it until they get used to it. YouTube has finally gotten used to the fact that we block most of the bullshit as ads. Let's do it this way too. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. We'll all need